Now, an annual report into digital news consumption based on a survey of nearly 100,000 people in 47 countries is suggesting that more people are actively turning away from the news. It also has some interesting findings on the role of tech company choices and the increasing appeal of short video. But the key finding is the waning interest in news, with a growing number of people, upwards of 39%, actively avoiding news, which is double where it was in 2017. They say it's all due to the negative nature of the news agenda. The lead authors of the report are from the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism. Well, for more on this story, I'm joined now in the studio by Arise political editor Sambo, who is also the director of news. And I expect this report makes you feel a little uncomfortable. But I mean, the key point here is the declining interest in news. Tell us more about the findings of this survey.
Yeah, very interesting finding. And I mean, it's a yearly finding, actually. And the most interesting part of it for me is that short videos are actually where the audiences are going to right now. Lots of younger people would prefer a sort of snacky journalism to be made available to them through short videos rather than, you know, these longer formats that we do. And then especially when it comes to print journalism, I mean, they just want things to be presented to them in a very few paragraphs. But Charles, I mean, it will be pretty difficult for you to be able to put, I mean, facts together in such a snacky way. I mean, because at the end of the day, you end up creating citizens that don't have depth. So it's good to know that, I mean, especially in the UK where this was done, majorly, and then with other countries that were surveyed, there's still trust in journalism, but of course the major challenge here is that people no longer want that sort of journalism that keeps them on the edge.
Right.
About wars, about famine.
That is that's the real interesting
feel
bit,
mentally
isn't it?
disturbed and depressed. But of course,
so
it's reality.
It's actually the negative nature of the news agenda. That's what turns people off.
Yes, actually.
You know, the high cost of living, although it affects them, obviously, and they need to know.
Yeah, but they don't want you presenting it the way it actually is. And that's why the challenge to us as journalists is, you know, what some writers and academics have been asking us to do, to sex the news, so to say. Fuse entertainment. I mean, fuse some sort of entertainment with hard fact-based news and all of that. But we have to be careful not to end up creating citizens that do not know so much beyond where they are. Because, I mean, facts are facts. And
our job is to present those facts so that the citizens can make decisions and, more importantly, hold their leaders to account.
Yeah, and we have to be less opinionated. And that's why we don't have to actually present information in such a way that our primary target will be to gain audiences. It will be to present the facts as they are, not because we're looking...
Without taking sides.
Yeah. I mean, but this is what happens on the internet. I mean, people do lots of clickbait because they are looking for audiences. And Charles, there was a recent survey by the BBC which found out that TikTok, for example, which is where lots of newer audiences, the younger people are running to right now, is actually misleading a lot of viewers, a lot of users on the social media by presenting satirical information as true. So parody accounts, many of them just go on there, say all sort of things, and you see that Rishi Sunak, for example, is already suffering from that at the Conservative Party. Even in Nigeria in the last elections, we had those instances where people just go present information on parody accounts, satirical accounts, as if it's real. And the audiences are not smart enough to be able to know that
so
this
they buy it.
Yeah, I mean, on Twitter, this keeps happening. They would have shared it 1,000,000 times in less than 30 minutes before they will get to discover that, I mean, that person couldn't have said what was written there.
And this survey also found that tech companies, that's the TikToks and the Facebooks and so on, and their algorithms are now explicitly deprioritizing news and political content. Is this possibly in response to what they're seeing in surveys like this? Because we're seeing Facebook trying to compete with other platforms like TikTok, for instance, and maybe showing hard news is not the best way of doing that.
Yeah, but coincidentally, Facebook has started showing hard news over time, you know, when they were kicked here and there a few years ago, because, I mean, they weren't presenting hard facts-based journalism to their users. So with this, yes, there's the temptation because they are a tech company, they're in business. And so the idea is to have more people using these apps here and there. So if Facebook is actually seeing TikTok beating them to it, then there's a problem. But the good thing here is that TikTok itself is actually being asked by governments across the world to actually improve on their algorithm so that they will help reduce the increasing level of fake news, of these parody accounts.
Well, we're fast running out of time. Is there a better way that media organizations can connect with audiences? Is it a question of how you package news or doing more good news stories? Because, I mean, I think you mentioned earlier, hard news is important for being an aware citizen and for knowledge of the world around you.
Yeah, except if we want to create citizens that lack depth. And we must understand that the citizens should not drive the journalism for us. But yeah, we need them in terms of numbers.
Because
so
they have
there
a
should
choice.
be a win-win solution.
They can simply ignore what you're putting out
but
and go
at their
somewhere
own
else.
detriment. Because if you run away from fact-based journalism because it doesn't suit your feelings at a particular point in time, and they tell you that the US, for example, is made up of 20 states rather than 50, and you take that into an examination hall, who's going to be the loser? So fact-based journalism will continue to be there, though we have declining newspapers, though we have declining views in TV and radio, but nonetheless, when they go around to all these apps, they still come back to the mainstream journalism to fact-check.
Absolutely.
Whatever they see
and that's absolutely key.
Because if we don't maintain our fact-based journalism in the mainstream media, then we wouldn't have a world to call ours tomorrow.
No, absolutely. Well,
and it's very important because political parties are taking advantage of these apps and using it to defeat their candidates, their opponents and all of that. But you have a government to run when you win an election. And you would want enlightened citizens as members of your populations. So if you don't go for mainstream journalism to support them, it will be a loss for each and every one of us.
So perhaps we're not going to dumb down.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we have to continue to support.
We're going to give a broader range of news.
Yeah, to continue to support the surveys. Every year, the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism, they keep doing this. And it gives us a feedback, a sort of barometer on what our audiences think of what we're doing. But the more we continue to present snacky journalism to them, then we'll end up going into yellow journalism, which several media houses have.
Which is a no-go area.
Yeah, I mean.
Sumner, we got to run. Thank you very much indeed. Sambo is Arise political editor and director of news.